So growing up is weird, you know, when I was growing up, I was homeschooled. Many of us were homeschooled, and you know what they say about kids who are homeschooled, that they might be a little bit rough around the edges, a little bit socially awkward, and it makes sense, right? Because when you are knee-high to a toadstool, and you are not surrounded by, 20 to 30 other knee-high to a toadstools, you don't get the same interpersonal interaction for experimenting with relationality, right? I at least had siblings. This helped. For 6th grade, I was finally going to get to go to a real school. And I didn't know what cool was. I knew what I liked. I had these skirts that would put Laura Ingalls Wilder to shame. They were just replete with ripples. They just flowed all the way around, and if I sat down on the floor, I could spread them all around me in a perfect circle. Now my hair, I would gather my hair up to the very top of my head so that it was a fountain with springs just shooting off in every direction. You guys have seen Addison running around? Yeah. So I didn't know what cool was. And 6th grade happened. There wasn't a whole lot that was terribly memorable about 6th grade. But somewhere between 6th grade and 7th grade, something happened. Something changed. Now, in these old stories, there's always a beautiful maiden. Scylla was a beautiful maiden, and all of the men in the village wanted to be with her. But she didn't really care about men. She wasn't interested in any of that. She wanted to be a water nymph. So any chance she got, she would run down to the coast where all of her water nymph friends were, and they would play in the water, and they would splash, and the sunlight would glisten off the drops flying through the air. Scylla wanted to be a water nymph, and so every free moment she got, she was down there, and they would laugh, they would gossip about men they loved or men they spurned, but Scylla didn't really care about men. Well, one day she was down in the water, and all of her water nymph friends had swum off, but she was still there entertaining herself when Glaucus came. Glaucus used to be a fisherman. One day he was hauling his catch in from the sea, and he spread out the fish all over the grass so that he could count them. And as they lay there, all of a sudden they began flip-flopping their way until they went back out to the ocean. Well, Glaucus saw this, and he knew there must be something strange about that grass. So he plucked up a handful of it, and he tasted it. No sooner had he done this, but he too began to feel the call of the ocean. He rushed out, and the waves cleansed him of his humanity. He became a merman. And he saw Scylla sitting on her rock after all of the water nymphs had left. He saw her, and she was beautiful. He was smitten. And Scylla saw him, and his skin was green, his hair was wild, his eyes were wilder. He had a fish's tail where there was supposed to be legs. Love? She ran away, terrified, rejecting him completely. And in that moment, she had no idea just how much her life was about to change. Somewhere between 6th grade and 7th grade, something happened. Maybe it was hormones. I became a tomboy. I cut my hair off, gone were the skirts. It was nothing but t-shirts and knee-length shorts. And my classmates had changed too. They had gone from mostly ignoring me to being downright vicious. Every day we always had a break mid-morning where we got to have a mid-morning snack between our classes. And I remember sitting in my desk, and I had my Tupperware of apple slices that I had cut up that morning, and they were crisp and juicy and sweet with just a little bit of tartness from the lemon juice I had sprinkled on them so they wouldn't go brown. I was eating my apples. John walked up to me. He had one of those little fans that you can get at Walgreens for like $1. They're battery operated, and normally the fan blades hang down at the side, but when you click them on, the top starts rotating and the fan blades pop up, and it's a great way to cool off in the middle of the summer. So he had one of these, and he walked up to me, and he shoved it in my face, and he clicked it on. I wish these were knife blades. Clicked it off. But it would be a waste of water to wash your blood off. Wow. Something had changed. I played basketball every day. I went out to recess and I threw myself into the game. Every day I played basketball. I practiced my dribbling. I got good with my right hand and with my left hand. I could go between my legs in both directions. I practiced my layups. I got good at the hook shot. I played basketball, and every day I came home, my knees were scraped and bloody and bruised because I was in the game fighting for the ball. And when you play basketball, you don't take time out to go get a Band-Aid at the office. Glaucus went to Circe. Circe, who made potions. Circe, who had love and passion for men. She heard Glaucus's tale. Her heart went out to him. Forget Scylla. I understand you. I can give you the love and the passion that you long for. I know what you want. Scylla is a silly child, but I can return your love. But Glaucus only had eyes for Scylla. Circe burned at the rejection, so she made a potion. But not the love potion that Glaucus had asked for. She took that potion to Scylla's favorite cove. She poured the contents of it on the water. The next time Scylla went to bathe, she put her foot in. Water was cold when it was usually so warm, and as she stepped in, it burned and it stung her skin as the poison made its way into her blood. All of a sudden, the hounds were leaping up out of the water, snarling and gnashing their teeth. She screamed and tried to run away, but they were attached to her, coming from her own unexplored intimacies, these hounds, vicious and snarling. What could she do but stay hidden in that cave? And so time passed, and from where she was in the cave, she could see the ships passing in the distance. And every now and then, when the loneliness got just to be a little bit too much to bear, she would come out from her cave just a little bit, just to try to get a better look. And she was still that beautiful young maiden from the waist up. Well, the men in their ships, they saw her. And they also wanted a better look. They brought their ships in close. There was nothing she could do. The hounds leapt from the water, leapt at the men, tearing their bodies before her very eyes. What was this anger that was attached to her? It was a part of her, but it was outside of her, and she understood it not. Until one day, she heard Odysseus was coming. Odysseus? Favored by Circe? Circe, who did this to her? Oh, Scylla began to feel that rage. She began to feel the anger. She felt it inside. She felt the power of it. She felt it grow, and she harnessed it, and it built, and she transformed herself into the six-headed snake monster. So that when Odysseus' ship came sailing by, she was ready, and she snatched up 6 of his men and swallowed them whole while their screams still filled the air. And in that moment, Scylla had her revenge. I will never forget the day. At recess, there were always 2 team captains, and they would take turn picking their team members. And the first team captain called out who he wanted on his team, and the second team captain called him. At the beginning of the year, I was always the last one chosen, and that day, he called my name before he called anyone else's. And the first team captain turned to him and said, "Hey, I wanted Cassie." I know. She's getting kind of good, right? And in that moment, all of my classmates, with their taunts and their snickers and their jeers, disappeared completely. In that moment, I was myself happy. And Scylla was still in her cave. One day, Hercules was coming, and he had with him the cattle of Geryon. And he was bringing them back to Greece, and he had to pass right by Scylla's cave. And Scylla was feeling a little bit hungry, and so she snatched up some of the cattle. Well, Hercules wouldn't stand for it. He slew her on the spot. But one of the sea gods had come to look upon Scylla as a father does a daughter. And so he gathered up her body and he put it on top of a funeral pyre and he lit it on fire. And from the heat of the fire, life returned. So if you ever find yourself passing through the straits of Messina, and maybe the sun is coming up as a new day dawns, or it's setting as darkness falls, but whatever it is, the water shimmers and looks like maybe it's on fire. You never know. Scylla might be there, waiting to see just what comes round the bend.